To our webinar, the Work from Home, the Ergonomic Challenge. So I'm just going to give a couple of quick introductions. My name is Rory Morgan. I'm the EMEA Marketing Director for Kensington. And with me today presenting is our colleague James Crow, who is a posture, mindfulness and ergonomics specialist. James runs his own consultancy business called Posture Stars. And James will be speaking later. He's going to be giving some great information for you guys to look at. So let me just walk you through quickly what we're going to cover today. So we're going to give you some information about how remote worker health is taking a hit at home, and how the home office isn't always ideal for workers in terms of ergonomics. I'll walk you through some ergonomic risk factors that are relevant for people that are working from home. Then talk a little bit more detail about work-related musculoskeletal disorders and how that relates to the home office specifically. Then I'll hand over to James, the expert on the call. So James is going to give you a live demo on video on some tips and tricks as to how we can set up our perfect home office environment. Okay, so just wanted to give you a quick walkthrough of kind of what I see as the three main takeaways that you'll get from this webinar today. So I'll take you through some data. So some information about work from home injuries and musculoskeletal problems that home workers may suffer, just to kind of make you aware of how serious this can be, and to make you aware that it is something that you and your organisation should be focused on. James, as I said, will give a live demo of the common faults when setting up a home office and how to fix them from an ergonomic point of view. And as I said, James has the expertise in ergonomics, so it's going to be really valuable for everybody on the call to hear that. And then, as part of that, James will give you some tips. So my hope is at the end of this webinar, you'll be able to go away with a short list of tips and tricks that you can pass on to your organisation that they can implement when they're working from home to make them more safe and more comfortable. So, as I said at the start, remote worker health is taking a hit at home. So there was a study done in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, and in that study, the respondents were asked about all manner of things about working from home. 32% of the respondents said that they were experiencing upper and lower back pain as a consequence of moving from the office to home. Almost the same number, 28% noted worsening posture. This could be for many reasons, but we can expect that when you're moving from an office which has chairs and desks that are designed to be worked at to a makeshift home office where you'd be working on a coffee table or a kitchen table somewhere that isn't designed for work, that has an effect. It's not an proper ergonomic setup. 27% said they had an increase in neck pain. So this is a really serious area of the body to be in pain with and to injure, and it's a leading cause of absenteeism from work as well. And 22% of people reported more headaches. This was put down to more time spent in front of screens in the midst of the pandemic and working from home, as opposed to being in the office where you may be walking around a bit more in face-to-face meetings where you're not looking at screens on Teams all day like we are today. Okay, so this study, as I said, was done in 2020 by Lenovo, and it was a pan-European study, so it pulled in information from all countries across Europe. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some ergonomic risk factors that may pop up when working from home. So what is an ergonomic risk factor? It's basically a workplace situation that can cause wear and tear on the body and eventually cause injury. And obviously that's something we want to avoid. So what are these risk factors? So they include repetition. So that's movement that happens time and time again. Good example is using a keyboard or a mouse. Awkward posture. So James will talk you through the ideal posture later, give you some tips on that. But as I said before, when working in environments that aren't designed for work, it is very common to be working with a poor posture, and that has its knock-on impact after that. Forceful motion. So motion that is done with force. So that may be again linked to the accessories that you use upon a desk. a stationary position. So, I'm sure lots of us can relate to this when working from home on video calls all day. It is very easy to not move from your desk, and if you're sat in a stationary position, your muscles seize up, and it's really not good for your overall health. Direct pressure is another risk factor. So, for example, leaning your wrists against the edge of the table, that applies direct pressure to pain points on your wrist, for example. Vibration, this can be another risk factor as well, which causes disruption to the muscles and the bones and your overall body health. Extreme temperature, perhaps something that we're a little bit more able to control at home compared to in an office, but this is a risk factor when conducting your work. And noise as well. So noise, depending on what's going on in your surroundings, all of these things can constitute ergonomic risk factors. And then finally, there's more and more knowledge and kind of studies going on around mental health. Work stress is something that's now recognised as an ergonomic risk factor, and it's something that's really important for overall health and well-being. Okay, so how does that translate into the specifics? So, work-related musculoskeletal disorders develop due to physical tasks that you carry out when you're doing your normal work activities. So, this definition is very explicit that these disorders or injuries that take place are very directly related to the work that you're doing. So these can include a number of things, and they're associated with work patterns that include fixed or constrained body positions. So as I mentioned before, if you're stationary and not moving, it's not good for your health and can lead to injury. Continual repetition of movement, so that links back to the ergonomic risk factor of repetition of movement. I'm sure many of you on the call will have heard of a condition called RSI, or repetitive strain injury. This is leads to multiple musculoskeletal disorder. And then force concentrated on small parts of the body, such as the hand and wrist, which is kind of what I mentioned earlier. And then another one is kind of the pace of work that doesn't allow sufficient recovery between movements. So, James will talk to you about this, I'm sure, but it's more widely recognised now that taking regular breaks is a key part of keeping your body and mind healthy throughout the day. And actually, I do believe this is something that working from home gives us more latitude with and allows us to do with more ease. Okay, so I'll walk you through some numbers, and just a note on these numbers. They are from UK data sets. So I think most of the people on this call are from the UK, but I know we have some European visitors as well. So just want to preface that with the fact these are UK numbers, but the point is still relevant across the whole of the globe, essentially. So in the UK, throughout 2020 and 2021, almost 500,000 of workers suffered work-related musculoskeletal disorders, either new or long-standing. So think about that, 500,000 people were suffering from this. This represents 1,420 per 1,000 workers, and therefore accounts for 28% of all work-related ill health in the UK. And that's a staggering amount of people that are taking time off work due to ill health of injuries that, as James will say to you later, can be very easily avoided with the right setup and the right equipment. So we have a chance to make a big impact on this number and really protect people's health when they're working from home or from the office. Of those nearly 500,000 workers that suffered from those work-related musculoskeletal disorders, about 85,000 of them reported that this was made worse by the effects of the COVID pandemic. So, a big part of this is the shift from working in an office, where the environment is designed to be worked in, to working from home, where we may be working from a sofa or a dining table or a kitchen table. All of these factors contributed to making musculoskeletal disorders worse within the workforce throughout the pandemic. Okay, and if we look at how this kind of translates to areas of the body, you can see here that upper limbs and the neck were the leading area of problems for the people that were in this survey. So almost half of the people within the survey suffered from complaints in that area. The back was the very close second problem area. So 39% of the musculoskeletal disorders were from the lower back, and then the lower limbs, much smaller number, but still very important in terms of looking after. But this kind of gives you an idea of what areas of the body we should be focusing on when we're trying to protect and prevent our teams and our employees from having these pains and disorders. Okay, so you'll be happy to know that that's it from me. I'm now going to hand you over to James Crow, who, as I mentioned, is an ergonomics, mindfulness and posture specialist for Posture Stars. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and James, if you want to take over the reins.
Great. Hi everybody. I'm hoping you can see me and you can hear me. If you could just start to let me know, that would be great.
We can.
Fantastic. Great. So we're here to talk about working from home ergonomics, and particularly in a team-based environment. And one of the reasons that got me into this work was working from home. I ended up with RSI, which Rory mentioned earlier, being one of the musculoskeletal disorders that people can suffer from. And I had it because I just started working from home on a laptop, and I thought that was okay. I could get my work done. I wanted to achieve, and unfortunately it made me ill and I had to stop work. So my task now is to ensure that as many people as possible don't end up suffering the same issues that I suffered. And unfortunately, over the last couple of years, I've seen this occur more and more and more and more, because more and more of us are working from home, either full-time or in a hybrid working environment. And we're still working just as hard, and a lot of us are actually taking fewer breaks, and we're moving less than when we were in the office. We're not going around and having chats with people. So what I want to show you today is some of the most common ergonomic mistakes that I've found looking through the lens when I've been doing my remote ergonomic assessments of people in their home working environments, so that you can spot them either in yourself or in the people that you work with, and stop those illnesses and stop those discomforts happening to you or those people that so unfortunately happened to me. So when I look at people in these assessments, a lot of the time people have just taken a bit of space and they set it aside and they do their work in that space. And the most common problem that we come across in those environments is issues with height. Height tends to be the major problem. So our posture is a function of our vision and our reach. And in the office, things are set up, hopefully, very well for us. We have a sort of standard height desk, usually 72 or 73 centimeters, and we have a nice ergonomic chair. But at home, that isn't often the case. And people are working on a kitchen counter at 90 centimeters, or on a coffee table at 45 or 50 centimeters. And we're trying to adopt our postures to these working practices. And these are causing a lot of these musculoskeletal disorders, a lot of the neck pain and the shoulder pain and the back pain, in addition to that lack of movement and that lack of going about our day with more activity. So whilst we're on this call, a lot of you will be sitting for this Teams webinar. And it's kind of assumed that we sit to watch, or we sit to participate in Teams. And more now companies are realizing that you don't actually have to be sat down. So I'd welcome you, if you're able to, without ripping your headphones out of your ears and destroying your home computer setup, why not just stand up for a minute or two and then have another sit down again? There's an ideal ratio of sitting to standing to moving, and we call this Hedges 3 S's. Hedges is a very clever ergonomics chap, and he recommends that we spend about 20 minutes in sitting, 8 minutes in standing, and 2 minutes in moving around every hour. And at the end of the day, that adds up to about 5 hours of sitting, which is ample. You can get a load of work sitting down in 5 hours, about 2 hours in standing, and half an hour also of moving and or stretching. So there's no reason during this call for you to sit there to watch me. I'd urge you to move around and enjoy the benefits that movement can bring. But if we are going to sit, most of us will be sat in slightly compromised positions. So what I'm going to show you today is firstly how to sit well, and then secondly how to configure your environment around you optimally, and then thirdly how to keep that going so that you end up with a really productive and comfortable day, which don't have to be mutually exclusive. So let's have a look at sitting. We've got here a standard office chair and a standard height office desk. Now this one's height adjustable. I love this desk because it means every half hour or so I can change to sitting, from sitting to standing and back to sitting again. But the first thing I want you to do, all of those of you who are able to, who are still sat down, is I'd like to invite you to stand up, please. And I know there are some of you who are thinking, yeah, I know, but I'm sat down and I just can't be bothered and nobody will know. In here, I'll know, and you'll know that I'm judging you and thinking, you could actually be standing up right now. So standing is the ideal position to go into sitting. And I say that because for a lot of us, if we've been sat down for a while and we've been using our computers, we tend to get dragged and pulled forwards into it. And this becomes quite a common postural state for most people. A lot of people will not use the chair back at all because of eyesight issues with the screen, or they're using a spreadsheet or something complicated and they get dragged in, and this becomes the norm. And then if you tell yourself off for sitting badly, the only option open to you still in sitting is to try and hoik yourself up, to pull yourself up into the upright. But in doing so, you're tensing yourself, and actually it leaves you in a tenser position, which is more tiring, which leaves you more likely to slump again. So if you find yourself slumping or sitting badly at work, the best option is to stand up and to gain your full height, and then to sit down again, which leaves you balanced really nicely. So how do you get that balance? Well, I'm going to invite you now to sit on your hands. So please take both hands and slide them under your bottom, under your derriere, under your tush, whatever it might be in your language, and have a little rummage around in there, and you're going to find two round bones. These are called your ischial tuberosities, but as that's a bit of a mouthful, I'm just going to call them my bum bones. So find your bum bones and feel them under your hands. Now I invite you to have a really big slump. So let yourself slump so that you're sat badly in your chair. Notice what happens to those bones. They disappear away out in front of your hands over there, and you're no longer sat on them. Your back is leaning into the chair, or all your weight is compressed. This isn't a good way to sit. So when we catch ourselves like this, the temptation is to try to sit up really straight. So let's try that. And now we're going to sit up as if we've just been recruited into an army or something, and we're doing our best sitting up posture like this. And you'll notice that those bones now have gone away that way, behind your hands. And you're no longer sitting on them again, but you're using a lot of muscular effort to hold yourself up, which is no good for our work either. It stops our breathing being free, it stops that free movement of our arms for typing, and it's very uncomfortable after a while. So instead, I invite you just to rock backwards and forwards slightly on those hands until you find a nice, comfortable upright position when you can feel those bones. That is a perfect balanced upright posture that you can then shuffle to the back of your seat if you have a seat back there, and that leaves you in a nice neutral posture. So your nice new neutral posture is the first step of getting your posture and your environment set up right. Now that you've got a nice neutral posture in your chair, your elbows want to be approximately the same height as your desk. So if you put your arms out in front of you as if you were going to type, and just check. And some of you will find that maybe your arms are a little below your desk, or some of you will find that they're a bit above your desk and you have an angle like this. The problem with an angle like this is it leaves you slumping down to type. And the problem with an angle like this is, as Rory mentioned before, we get that contact stress into the nerves and muscles of the arm on the edge of the desk, which can lead to a lot of injury and a lot of pain. So if our arms are level at about 90 degrees, that means that we're sitting well and we're ready to type well as well. And a really nice tip for bringing your hands onto a keyboard, instead of just coming on to type, which tends to tighten your neck and shoulders, is to have a flourish and bring your arms on from the side like this. If you try that now, if you try going straight onto a keyboard, you'll notice it tightens the neck and shoulders. But if you have a little flourish round, it leaves that shoulder really nice and open. So your nice neutral posture is supporting your spine, supporting your rib cage, which supports your shoulders, and you're leaving your shoulder nice and open as you bring your arm around. So you've got a nice posture now and your arms are in the right place. But what if your desk isn't in the right place? For some of you, as I said, your desk is going to be a bit too high. And in that case, you want to raise where you're sitting. So you can either raise the chair you're on if you can, or you can place a cushion on the chair to give you a little bit more height. So a cushion at home is really easy to find, and that will give you more height so that your arms are at the right height for that table. However, if that leaves your feet not touching the floor in a nice flat position, that's going to cause you to tighten into the hips and legs to support yourself. So instead, you want to raise where your feet are using either a foot stand, which are very easy to get hold of, or you could use anything available at home, a stack of books or some boxes or something, so that you're sitting in a nice neutral seated position with your feet flat on the floor and your arms out in front of you. What happens in the instance that your desk is too low and you're in that good seating position? Well, you can either raise your desk by putting something under the desk, or you can raise your working height by placing something on top of the desk, just to give you a bit more height. So once you've got your seating right and your arms and elbows right and your desk right, we turn to look at the screen. And your screen wants to be about eyebrow height, the top of your screen. And this is an issue if you're just using a laptop. So for those of you who are just using a laptop flat on a desk, no doubt the screen is too low for you. So you want to raise that screen using either a laptop stand, which are readily available, or you could use some boxes to raise your laptop on as well. And if you have a dedicated external screen, make sure that that's at the right height too, either by adjusting it or by sticking stuff under it to raise it as well. And this will make a big difference to how you hold yourself in your head and in your neck. So those are some really easy minor adjustments that you can make to avoid some of the issues that we talked about in terms of those ergonomic issues. So you can avoid the contact stress, you can avoid the awkward postures, but that leaves us with repetition, and it leaves us with repetition, and it leaves us with repetition, and it leaves us with forceful. And a lot of people tend to type really hard, and they hold their mouse really hard as well. I'm probably a little bit older than some of you, and I learned to type on a typewriter, which involved lots of effort to type. And when I work in an office, I notice that some people still type really forcefully. And you'll know in your work experience, some people around you who type like elephants, whereas you're there typing very quietly and proud of yourself. So if you're a keyboard jabber, be aware of how much effort you put into typing. And also now, some of you, there will be, I guarantee, some of you on this call who are still holding your mouse, even though we're on a Teams call and you're just observing. So our tendency is to go into that static posture and to maintain that static posture. So you can take your hand off your mouse when you're not using it to reduce that. And then just like when you came onto your keyboard to type round and on, you can come onto your mouse round and on as well. And I really favor vertical mice, upright mice, because they tend to keep your shoulder much more open than if you have one of these horizontal mice, which tends to round your shoulder forwards, which can leave you with neck and shoulder problems. So they're a really easy, quick win as well. So those are how we deal with those with the ergonomic risk factors, and those are how we deal with the postural issues really quickly and really simply. I've also got on posturestars.com, I have a list of 17 top tips and tricks for working from home. So do visit posturestars.com and pick those up. But for now, before we go into questions, I'd like to leave you with 5 takeaway quick tips that are easy wins. So my first quick easy win is have a dedicated workspace. If you're working from a home environment and you're thinking, oh, I'll just get a bit of work done, chances are you're going to leave yourself in a bad place, in a bad position. So make space at home and make it a dedicated office environment that stays there, even if it leaves you short of space, because you're going to be spending 8 hours a day doing stuff in that position. So definitely make a dedicated workspace. Secondly, I've mentioned, get your screen up to eye level, particularly if you're just using a laptop. It's such an easy win. You can either spend very small amounts of money on some risers, or you can use anything available to raise your screen height up. The reason is that's going to stop you pulling forwards and down like this and getting tired in your neck and shoulders. Thirdly, if that is the case, always, always, always use a separate keyboard and mouse. It's not possible to work with good posture with a laptop flat on a desk. It just isn't. You need a separate keyboard and mouse. Fourthly, you need those breaks. Remember I said every half hour you want to be moving after 20 minutes of sitting. So I use something like one of these Pomodoro timers. Our Italian friends will be familiar with the words Pomodoro. And all I do is I set it for 20 or 30 minutes. And when it goes off, then I move. I don't think, oh, I'll just finish this email that I'm doing, or oh, I've nearly finished that spreadsheet. Because if you fall in that trap, trust me, you just won't move at all. Movement is key to keeping your posture going and keeping yourself comfortable and productive at work. Really, really key. Which finally brings me to, when you do move, just do a little bit of movement, a bit of stretching. The quickest, easiest one to open up away from that tendency is to put your arms behind you, clasp your hands together and pull your shoulders together. And you can just raise those hands slightly, and that tends to open up and undo that tightening in the chest. Or another nice one is make yourself a W shape and then turn it into a V. And again, that's really opening up here, which is going to help you posturally. So that's how to sit properly in a nutshell very quickly, and how to get your ergonomics in a nutshell very quickly set up. I hope that's useful. I'm ready for some questions.
Thank you very much, James. I'm going to invite everybody to do a virtual round of applause on Teams with the clapping hands. Thank you, James.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So let's see if we have any questions. Okay, so we have one from Lindsay Alexander, or Alexander Lindsay. Sorry, I'm not sure which order Teams has put that in. They say, many thanks for this excellent session. Could I ask for the link to Posture Stars to be included in the chat or to be sent on the recording afterwards? So yes, absolutely. We'll send information afterwards. What I will do actually is reshare my my PowerPoint slide, because we have James's information. On here, actually, while we're here, I have one more slide that I'd forgotten about. So just to note, while we wait for some more questions to come in, Kensington has a full range of ergonomic equipment. You know, James mentioned risers a couple of times, and the footrest equipment. Kensington has all of this in our range. So if you do need any more information about ergonomic accessories, please do get in touch with us. We also have a system that is embedded in a lot of our products called Smart Fit, which makes the adjustment and the setup of these products much more simple for those people who don't have the knowledge and the expertise. So the information here, we have James's website at the bottom, and we have the Kensington details as well if you wanted Kensington's website or contact email address. Okay, so I actually need to come out of here so I can have a look at the chat. Bear with me. That's all. That we haven't got any further questions in the chat. So if anyone does have any questions, please do type it in, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask James or myself anything you may want answering. Okay. We have a thanks for sharing comment in the chat. Okay, Lindsay has commented again. Lindsay's asked for any details about vertical mice. So yeah, in Kensington range, we have a vertical mouse, a couple of vertical mice in the range. We can share some details with you after this, absolutely. Okay, another comments just to say thanks for presenting.
Thank you for having me, everybody. It's been great to present to you. I love such an eclectic mix of people, and I really hope that if even just one of those little tips you take on board and change your working habits, or you can pass that on to your colleagues, clients, customers, and change their working habits, it will make a big difference to the number of musculoskeletal problems that are prevalent at the moment. And it's just those tiny little changes. None of this is rocket science. It's just tiny little changes that we need to apply, as opposed to thinking, well, I've just got to get the work done now. We just take a couple of minutes to look after ourselves first, and we get more done. You feel better at the end of the day. So it really is a no-brainer. But thank you very much for having me on. I feel very grateful and appreciative to be part of this community.
No, thanks, James. We do have one more question, really good one actually. Gigi has asked, can a screen be too high?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If your screen is too high, I'll lower this chair here, and I will work as if my screen is too high. Immediately, we tend to focus and do most of our work around this sort of area here, where normally you'd find the search bar on a Chrome tab or whatever. And if your screen is too high, the tendency then is to rotate your head to look up, and you can see immediately what's happening here to my neck. So if your screen is too high and you aren't able to lower the screen, then really what you need to be doing is raising your seat so that the screen, top of the screen, is about eyebrow height, and then adjusting your keyboard and your mouse and raising your feet if you need to as well. So absolutely, having too high a screen is just as uncomfortable, if not more uncomfortable, than having too low a screen. It's definitely worth sorting that out.
Okay, I think that's it. All the questions we've got. As I said, if you do think of any other questions after this call, feel free to contact James through his website or through the contact at kensington.com email address. We'll be happy to answer some questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer anyone's questions. James at posturestars.com, or just hit me up on posturestars.com or on LinkedIn, or also I do bits on Instagram as well, but they're less reverent and probably less useful to the office staff, but I'd love to see you there as well.
Very good. Actually, James, we do have a latecomer question.
Oh, right.
What is your opinion about sitting balls?
Okay, so I hear this a lot, and if you speak to the Pilates community, they really like sitting balls. The Pilates community, for a living, strengthen their core, and they love a strong core, and they're all about strong cores. As office workers for a living, we don't strengthen our core for a living. We kind of sit for a living. So I think that it's really important to have a chair back that you can rest into to give yourself that support. If you want something more dynamic to sit on, you're better off going for something like this here. These are called a back-up chair, which is a saddle stool that you can raise, and there's a little ball here that you can use to change how wobbly your chair is. So you can have all the support of a really comfortable seat and still be a bit wobbly while you work. And those are great for sit-stand workstations as well, because you can perch in the standing position to have a rest, or you can lower it into the sitting position as well. So any of those kind of perch stools are really worth a look. But as for the Pilates balls, I'm not so convinced. And if you have a peek on YouTube at Melissa McCarthy, who is a famous American comedian, and if you type in Melissa McCarthy Pilates ball or that type of ball, you'll see quite a good comic sketch about what it's actually like to try and sit and work on one of those. That makes me laugh every time. I hope I've answered the question.
I think so. That's good. Thank you. Okay, so no further questions coming in from the chat, so I think we'll leave it there. We're 5 minutes over anyway, so we'll let you good people get back to your movement. Please remember, get up, stand up, go for a walk, go get a coffee or a drink, and have some movement, because you may have been sat down for the half an hour, and as James said, that's too long.
Too long. Go and do something else.
Thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye.